This is FERPA and becoming more familiar with the latest changes to FERPA in regards to the Sioux Falls School District. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, is a federal law that protects the confidentiality of student education records. It's in Title 20 of the United States Code, and the people who have rights are the parents who claim the children on their taxes and the children themselves. Who enforces FERPA? The Family Policy Compliance Office in the Department of Education. What schools are subject to FERPA? Any school that receives federal funding for any program administered by the Department of Education. FERPA in the Sioux Falls School District Handbook. Personally identifying information would include name, address, student ID number, or any other information that is identifiable to a certain student. If a third-party vendor requests access to their personal information, the district shall enter into a written agreement ensuring the provider uses the information for authorized purposes only. It prevents disclosure of protected student information by the provider to third parties, and it maintains that the student data collected by the provider is under the direct control of the district with regard to the provider's use of that information. It also requires that the provider observe state and federal laws for the use and breach of personal identification information. How to maintain security. First of all, be careful with vendors. If a vendor intentionally or accidentally misuses the student's education records, the school would still be at fault. Schools cannot deny parents access to their 18-year-old child's student records, so you have to give it to parents. Just be careful how you do so. At the college level, parents do not have the same rights, though. FERPA allows educators to share information amongst other staff in the same institution or district, but according to McDonald's, probably best not to share such sensitive information over email because it's not the most secure method of communication. A couple exceptions to FERPA include coming from the Department of Homeland Security. They're allowed to get information to monitor the stay of international students, or for example, if an issue concerning a student who has overstayed their visa, they can get some information. Also, a judicial order or lawfully issued subpoena can be a reason why somebody else would get this information. And then a student is a suspected victim or a suspect in a violent crime or a sex offense. Other exceptions to FERPA include, in the context of school safety, FERPA makes exception to its restrictions on data sharing should knowledge of such information be necessary to protect the health and safety of students or other persons in connection with an emergency, for example, an epidemic or a campus shooting. In reference to other common questions, a FAQ document has been made, and you can click that link if you would like. Definition of directory information includes the information contained in a student's education record that would not be generally considered harmful or an invasion of privacy if disclosed. Some tips for parents and adult age students. Now, this was more for parents, but I think it's pretty important to state this just because we can kind of do our part to let parents know as educators how they can be more prepared for these situations. So this would be something that I might send out to parents in terms of FERPA. So read everything that is sent home with your child from school or sent in the mail, and always looking for opt-out options if they so require that. Always question why information about the student is being requested. Find out how the school defines directory information. Ask for a copy of the school district policy on surveys and third-party access to personal student information. Teach your child to tell you about surveys and questionnaires. Ask for a copy of the school district policy regarding requests to access the education record. Ask for a copy of school district policy regarding videotaping and photography. And there were a few more that I put a link on there that maybe you would also want to list, but I just stated a few of them. Surveillance. This was something that kind of goes unnoticed sometimes. Typically, schools have cameras, but the Fourth Amendment prohibits government entities such as public schools from conducting unreasonable searches. So what constitutes as reasonable? Videos taking place in public places with a low expectation of privacy is what they say. So it's kind of up in the air still, but courts have generally upheld video surveillance recordings in school hallways, stairwells, school buses, parking lots, and even classrooms. So unreasonable, though, would be, for example, a bathroom or a locker room, because that's got a high expectation of privacy. And then camera zoom, there was a little piece that talked about it might be unreasonable if you can't see it with the naked eye, if you have to zoom in with a pretty expensive lens or something to see something. It might be considered unreasonable. Digital information protected by FERPA. First of all, this is just anything that can be protected would be a full name, date of birth, home address, health records, special education referrals, biometric data, which kind of is why I put it later, because that biometric data piece, such as fingerprints and facial scans, is also something kind of blurry at times. So just kind of looking out for that stuff and making sure. All right, so ensuring your school is FERPA compliant. So these are just a few ways that we can look and make sure that our school is FERPA compliant. According to eyesight.com, we are going to raise FERPA awareness by having these meetings and talking to parents and talking to students about how important their information is. We're going to confirm that FERPA applies to our school, which it does. We do get federal funding here, so it does apply to our school. Know the rights, protections, and exceptions. Choose compliant vendors, train all school employees, implement compliant policies and procedures, and then encrypt files and emails and implement other prevention tools. What happens if there is a FERPA violation? Okay, so the DOE may act as an intermediary between the school and the parent. Most of the time, the incident is an accidental disclosure of student education records, which I just thought I would throw in there. And then typically the best response to that would be involving the DOE assisting the school to improve its policies, practices, and security controls. The DOE may conduct full formal investigations. And then a little quote here from the Department of Education says, in instances where educational agency or institution is unwilling or unable to come into voluntary compliance with the law, and it is otherwise appropriate, will the department withhold federal funds? So federal funding could be withheld if they're not upholding FERPA. Where does the information go after graduation? First of all, if a student graduates, they need to delete that information. So transcript information, that will be preserved. That one won't be thrown away, but the majority of the student information might be destroyed. And so it's important to know that just deleting the files from the computer might not actually be enough. There's some software called, this one way would be called clearing, which there's software that would be designed to clear files and make them unable to come back. Purging would be a special technician who's using these methods to make the data unreadable. And then obviously just destroying it. So either disrupting the data by making the media unusable, whether that be actually destroying the hard drive or something like that, just making it completely unusable. If you are seeking liability, you may obtain a certification form signed by the individual responsible for performing the destruction to gain the detailed information about the destruction. And these are my references.